Hey guys, 大家好, welcome back to AB Chinese, and today we're going to be trying out an app called Busuu. Before we get started, just a few things you should know about this app. They have over 10 courses and they're all based off of the CEFR, which is like a European standard for language learning. They also seem to focus on language learning for businesses, and according to their website, some of their clients include DHL, Puma, and Uber. And finally, one of their selling points is becoming fluent in a language in 10 minutes a day. And they also say that 22 hours of Busuu Premium equals 1 semester of college, which is pretty lofty, but hey, let's go into it with an open mind. And speaking of Busuu Premium, this app is not completely free. There are some free content, but there's 2 levels of paid subscriptions. And I did contact the people at Busuu and they unlocked everything for me today so that I can try it out for you guys. In our conversations though, they also did say that their Chinese course wasn't really a priority right now. So I don't know if I should be worried.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
But let's get started and see what this app has to offer. 我们开始吧. So as I mentioned, this app splits all their courses into A1, A2, B1, B2 levels. There are no C levels, so like right now this is beginner A1. If you scroll down here, there should be A2, and then all the way down here, this is B2 level. So let's do something in A2 because I don't want to start with the very beginning. Okay, let's do lesson 11 in A2. Asking and giving. New words and phrases. That was a very slow audio. Okay, so this button on the top right toggles between Pinyin and characters. That's very nice actually. Because if you're somebody who has memorized the characters, you don't have to have the Pinyin and you can challenge yourself. The audio is really slow. The sentence is like a normal audio, but the actual vocab audio is very slow. 当然你可以借用我的笔. A more natural way to say this is actually 当然了. If you're responding to somebody, 我能借用你的笔吗? Oh, 当然了.
当然
Of course.
当然可以
当然可以也行. Or this is okay too.
你不能
I think this phrase is a little bit awkward. If you want to tell somebody they can't do something, the more common way to say it is 不行. Okay, so the next step after the vocabulary is dialogue.
嘿，爱丽丝，我已经完成了该项目，我可以发给你，帮我查看一下吗？
当然大卫
Okay, I really like this. This is kind of like the stories from Lingo Deer. It's very nice. The speaking is pretty natural. It's a little on the slow side. I think everything in here is on the slow side, or all the audio in here is a bit on the slow side. So if you run into like an actual conversation, you might not be as prepared. But at least you'll be able to understand this conversation and feel motivated,
帮我查看一下吗？
当然，等会儿我能和你通话吗？当然可以。你介意我 Okay. All right, now we're doing a quiz.
你介意我
Okay, and that completes one lesson. It's not too long, it's very manageable. I think you need to definitely do that in 10 minutes a day. Now let's try a grammar lesson. I'm going to stick with the A2 level, and this one caught my eye. Future tense, I'm guessing, 22. So let's do this one.
A few moments later.
This is kind of unrelated to language learning, but I have noticed this app loads kind of slow, and I'm pretty sure it's not my phone because the other apps that I've tried out haven't loaded this slowly.
你午饭会吃比萨饼
That's a little weird. I feel like this is a sentence that doesn't really translate that well into Chinese.
我们之后会说到今晚你会去电影院，你午饭会吃比萨饼吗？
See, the sentence in a question form, it sounds a bit more natural to me, like, will you have pizza for lunch? So I've noticed that they don't really teach you the grammar, and this is going to sound like memorize all over again. I hope it's not, because there's 2 grammar points they could have taught, which is 会 and 要. And I've noticed that in all of these sentences, but these are all just random sentences that happen to be in future tense. And so far, I'm not seeing anything that would teach you the grammar. Also, whenever I finish these lessons, it always ends on this blank screen. And the first time I saw it, I was like, is it glitching? And then I noticed this X on the top left corner. So you have to click that, and then that lets you get out of the lesson. So after I did that grammar lesson, there wasn't really any grammar. I think if I didn't know how to use future tense in Chinese already, I would still not know how to use future tense in Chinese. Before I go on and try another lesson, let me see if I can find grammar explanations in case there's somewhere else that's like not in the lesson.
I'm searching around for hours and hours and I can't find it.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything. That's kind of disappointing then. So let's go back to A1 and start from the beginning. Hello, what's your name? I can't already see what's in those lessons. Oh, hey, introduction to Chinese characters. Chinese characters have been developed in various different ways. To start, we're looking at pictograms. Can you guess the meanings of these characters?
口
I noticed they show you the stroke orders. Very nice. That means mouth. True. Okay. Person and mountain.
山
Oh, whoops. You unlocked leagues. Check out your position in this week. Okay, that's just leaderboard. That's boring. Let me look for Pinyin. See if they introduce that anywhere. See, that wasn't at the beginning. I found it. It's in lesson 9. Let's take a look. Every Chinese character has a sound which is written in Pinyin. This is a great tool which uses Latin alphabet. Every character is made up of 3 components.
o
This pronunciation is slightly off, I will say. It sounds too much like in English O. O.
o
In Chinese, it's more O. Almost like a or, not O. I skipped through the last letter a little too quickly, but this pronunciation is also a little off.
u
So this one should be yu, like in the word yu, which they use as an example. It's yu, not you. But this is actually a good tip. This is in Chinese character 2. Chinese characters are made up of smaller building blocks. In this lesson, we're going to go over some of Chinese characters. I think this is something that a lot of people learning Chinese don't necessarily learn, and a lot of native speakers do learn, is that like we talk about characters based on their components. For example, a lot of people know da da da, 3 of the most confusing characters in Chinese. Native speakers will refer to this da as bai shao da because it's made up of a bai and it's made up of a shao. But I don't think a lot of Chinese learners necessarily know that or refer to that character as bai shao de. And I think they should, because it makes it easier for you to remember characters when you break it down into the components. Sometimes though you won't know what the components are called, like kou jia. I don't know what this component is. It's jiao. This is a good tip too. The radical often dictates the character's meaning. This is a character that's very not commonly used. It's nice to know, but if this is like your 4th or 3rd Chinese lesson, you probably shouldn't be memorizing it. Okay, let's try a more advanced lesson, shall we? Okay, lesson 12. I like to read books.
诗，非小，非小说，自传，自传。目前我的阅读一本自传。作家，情节。
I want to mention something right now. At the very beginning, I thought, oh, it's pretty nice that they have like just Chinese without the pinyin for the people who want to challenge themselves, until I realized that these are new words. So maybe that's not such a good idea because you wouldn't know how to pronounce it. Oh wait, you could just listen to the audio though. I suppose you could just listen to the audio, unless you're not an auditory learner. Okay, I noticed a new section for this lesson, conversations. I don't think I've seen that before in the previous lesson, so let's take a look. Unless I can't. Do I have to go through these?
我刚看完了我的
A few moments later.
Okay, you had to do everything in order, so I had to finish those before I got to conversations, but let's take a look at conversations. Describe the plot of your favorite novel or film. I have to come up with a plot. So much brain power. 我最喜欢的电影情节是关于一个外星人的战争经历. What am I sending this to? Your exercise has been sent to the community for correction. Now get more corrections by finding Chinese speakers. Let's see. Find Chinese speakers. Oh, lucky you, found some Chinese speakers. Okay, well, it's nice that you can find native speakers to practice with. I'm not going to do this, so I'm going to skip it, but that's really cool, actually. That's something that I wish I had for Korean, because in my Korean learning, I do a lot of example sentence writing, because I find that really helps me. If I learn a new word, I have to use it in a sentence. Otherwise, I'll forget it. But like when I write sentences, I don't know if my sentences are correct. Like I'm 90% sure they're correct, but I'm not 100% sure that they're always correct. Finally, let's go to B2 and find something to do over here. I'm going to say right now that I think this is going to have some of the same problems as Memrise. There's too little focus on grammar, and also the content doesn't seem that deep for upper intermediate. This doesn't feel like upper intermediate.
奢侈，
彩票，
英文国家彩票。
环球旅行，
Reminds me of one of the first Jackie Chan movies I've ever watched, Around the World in 80 Days.
敞篷车，
Oh, this is I didn't know this word actually.
你随时可以玩彩票。
So in this sentence, she said, 你随时可以玩, which is one plus the arhua. If you don't know about that, you can. I haven't made a video about it, but there's a lot of resources online that you can look up how to use R. It basically doesn't even add anything significant to the sentence, but it's a little tricky in some of these programs when they pronounce it, but they don't necessarily put the character inside the text. So it's important that you know what R is and how it's used. Otherwise, you might be confused why one is pronounced as war. Let's try one more lesson in B2.
手提电脑，
From what I've heard, most people call laptops 笔记本, like notebooks. Alright, so up here on the top right corner, if you click there, there's like a study plan, which looks like just like a schedule for when you're going to practice each day. You can click on edit your study plan, you can change like your goal, which I don't know if this actually changes anything in the program. I tried clicking on different things. These are the same lessons. So I don't know what's the point of that. Another feature I found was review. So on top it will show you your strong, medium, and weak words. Obviously, I was kind of messing around and wasn't really focused. Otherwise, I wouldn't have zhen as my weak word. But hey, it's good that I can now test out the feature. So I'm going to do review now and see how.
上冲浪，
网上冲浪, they want me to type in Chinese. The thing with typing in Chinese is it's all predictive. So if you know the Pinyin, then you can just type all of those in and it comes out. If you want to challenge yourself, you can change your keyboard to a handboard keyboard. So like you can write Mima. I think that's the better way to do this if you really want to challenge yourself. 鼠标. Well, I think I've tapped through everything now. So let's talk about my final thoughts on Busuu. Okay, let's just get straight to the point and say that this app isn't great for learning Chinese. Like, I know that it wasn't built for Chinese, it was built for European languages, and that's what they're focused on. But they offer the course, and I'm here today to decide whether or not it's a good app for learning Chinese, and that's a conclusion, and I'll break down why. So once again, let's start off on the positive side. So the first thing they did well that I really liked was how they introduced characters. I loved how they broke down the characters into their components. They explained how the characters came to being by first introducing, some characters that are based off of pictograms. The second thing I want to talk about is they have a really nice progression for learning. And what I mean is how they introduce your vocabulary first, and then they show you a dialogue which applies the vocabulary that you just learned. And then they quiz you on the vocabulary that you just learned so you can solidify the information. And then finally, you can apply yourself by speaking or writing your own sentences with the vocabulary. And that last step is something that a lot of people, I think, don't put enough emphasis on. Because a lot of people really just memorize vocabulary, and then when they have to use it, they just draw a blank because they're not used to using it. They only learn it in the context of singular units of thought, but they don't know how to combine it with other thoughts to create these more complex ideas. So I really love that they introduced that practice at the end of their lessons, and it's even better that they pair you up with native speakers who will critique your sentences and what you say. So that's kind of my third point too, is the community aspect is really awesome. Because learning a new language is really about connecting with people, right? It's about connecting with a different culture, a different group of people, and what better way to do that than to start right away? Okay, now let's talk about the not so great. The first thing is blatant errors. The o and the yu, which they pronounce as
o u，
and this is a big issue because if it was one word that was incorrectly pronounced, then as a learner, you would just learn that one word wrong, right? But when you're talking about the Pinyin section, okay, when you're teaching the Pinyin, that's like teaching the pronunciation. So if you teach one sound wrong, that means in the future, every word you encounter, every character you encounter that has that pronunciation, you're probably going to pronounce wrong. So that's a huge deal. Like, you know how many Chinese characters have those two sounds in them? A ton of them. So it's really bad if those are pronounced incorrectly, and that's why I'm making such a big fuss about that. And while I was trying out this app, I actually didn't encounter any wrong pronunciations for like words. But while I was taking notes and preparing for this summary, and I was playing around with the app some more, I did find another error. This is in lesson 46, going shopping, of the A1 section.
我得去买东西。
Right there, that first one. That first sentence should be what day 去买东西. That character can be pronounced "的", but only in certain situations, like in this
我觉得
sentence.
我觉得肉店没开门吧。
That's correct. 我觉得肉店没开门. And the hilarious thing is, later on, the male voice pronounces it
我
correctly.
也是，我得买几件新衣服。
我得买晚饭吃的东西。
And also, I won't make any more comments about whether or not these are real voices or if they're computer generated, because I can't tell apparently. But now I have a feeling that they're not real voices, because I don't think a native speaker would have made that mistake. The second issue is that overall this app is teaching you a poor selection of words. I'll give you a few examples here. Okay, so the first one is 你不能.
你不能。
A more colloquial way to say it is 不行. Another example is how they said laptop is 手提电脑.
手提电脑。
And I mentioned that 笔记本is a more colloquial way of saying it. Again, it's right, but like there's better words. And also check out the sentence and how they use the word 该.
嘿，爱丽丝，我已经完成了该项目。
If you're a beginner learning Chinese, you might think that 该 means should, but it actually has a more complex usage, and it means like this or that, or like the thing that we're talking about. More colloquially, you would say 这个 or 那个 in the sentence, but 该 is more, it's what we call 书面. It's text. You would use it more in written text and not so much in speech. So overall, if memorize is the one that taught you all the cool colloquial sayings, Busuu is like teaching you all the technically correct, but maybe makes you sound awkward sayings. Third problem with this app is that there's no grammar. Again. You know, it's kind of funny because I didn't notice this at the time, but that grammar lesson I did, the first one, about future tense in the A2 section, was the last grammar lesson in the whole course. There were no grammar lessons in B1 or B2. So that already says a lot. And you know what? Even the grammar lessons that they offered didn't really teach the grammar. Now, of course, there are more complex grammar points that qualify as B1 or B2. And in fact, if you want to learn grammar, okay, I suggest you go to what's it called? Okay, allsetlearning.com. They have a Chinese grammar wiki. It's a very good resource, and they have a pretty comprehensive coverage of like basically all the grammar points that you need for Chinese. So I'll link that down below. Go check out that website and learn yourself some Chinese grammar. Okay, finally, let's talk about some functionalities that I found were missing in this app. The first thing I noticed was the audio. The audio speed was too slow. It's very unnatural and nobody talks that slowly. The exercises were pretty basic. There were only like 2 or 3 different types of exercises as opposed to other apps which offer more game-like experience. There were no sentence breakdowns, which is a very good feature I talked about in some of the previous apps. And finally, there were no pinyin over the characters. So at first I thought it was kind of cool that you could toggle the characters or the pinyin, but then I realized if you're learning these characters and they're new words to you, then you probably want to see the pinyin over the characters. I really don't like giving out bad reviews. I don't like to talk bad about anybody or any product, but it's just really hard because I spend a lot of time thinking about, is there a demographic of people, a demographic of learners that this app would be suited for? And obviously I thought about business people because that's what it seems like they're catering towards. But there's just too many gaps in the content. There's too many gaps with accuracy, whether it's grammar or just not having the tools that will really help you to learn Chinese. That ultimately, I think, regardless of your purpose for learning Chinese, there's going to be a better app out there for you. If you want to learn Chinese for travel, I already mentioned this, go to Memrise. Memrise will teach you useful phrases fast if you're not committed to becoming really fluent at Chinese. But if you want to become fluent at Chinese, then don't even use Memrise and use one of the other apps like Duolingo, Lingo Deer, and Hello Chinese are all good. So that is all for today. I hope you found this review helpful, and hopefully you weren't too disappointed for those of you that voted for me to try out Busuu. But at least now you know, and there's better alternatives out there. As always, leave your comments and suggestions down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video, which, by the way, I've got something really cool planned, so I'll see you guys there. 我们下次再见啦，拜拜。